Excellent.
That'll probably be fine. Okay. Welcome to the Film Student Study Guide. I am Roberto Manco Stens. This is my co-host Truman Matheny, and we have our special guest today, MJ Cook. That's right, we're doing the Truman, what is this?
Badass Women of Cinema.
Cool, that one. I assumed that you had some sort of name of it. We finally did it after saying that we should do it for like 10 episodes now. Finally did it.
Yeah.
So.
It's a momentous moment.
Yeah. What?
So, MJ, what qualifies you to speak on this?
Well, I'm a woman, and
Yeah.
I've made films my entire life, and I'm going to study film at UT. So,
UT, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm going to UT and majoring in film production. So, kind of qualifies me.
So, I guess, yeah, why don't we jump right into it, I guess. That's probably the best way to go about it.
Okay.
MJ, do you want to pick the first character that you want to nominate as an official badass woman of cinema and explain why?
Yeah, so my first character is Detroit, and she's from Sorry to Bother You, which I watched last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it last night because my friend said it was super good, and I mean, it was so funny, but it was also so real, and it was really, it still related to what's going on today with, like, the whole Black Lives Matter movement and stuff, so it was just a super awesome movie, and she is such a cool woman of cinema because even though she's only a side character and she's like a girlfriend, she is an artist and she's super proud of like everything she does. She's not afraid to stand up for herself. The whole entire movie, she never backs down, and it's like done in a pretty funny way at times, but she's also very cool and kind of just like does whatever she wants. And I really appreciate that about her character.
Roberto, have you seen Sorry to Bother You?
I have not. It's on the list.
It's good.
Well,
I heard it wasn't great, but like I heard that the best parts of it were like in the trailer, because like I remember watching the trailer in chaos and everybody like, wow, that movie looks awesome, and then people watch the movie and they're like, that's not what we saw in the trailer. So
that's true. That's fair.
I think this movie was definitely a victim of false advertising.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the reason why I didn't personally like the movie, but I did walk out of it totally understanding that it is a quality film, that's doing something really cool. It does seem a little bit pushy for me, but I don't know. You can be pushy if you want, if you're going to make a film, and at least it's, all through a metaphor and all that.
Yeah, I really appreciated that aspect of it. I kind of liked that it was all through metaphor.
Yeah. As far as the woman, doesn't she do a pretty heavily showy scene where she's almost nude wearing the hand stuff?
Yeah, it's like her art exhibit, and she has hands only covering the really small amounts of her.
So that would be my question there is, do you think they pull off the nudity in a way that's not, I don't know, expletive or exploitative?
I liked that scene. That scene like really stuck with me. I just thought it was cool, and I thought it was done in a good way that made sense with her character, because she's just so like kind of open and all over the place, and that art exhibit was also all over the place, and since it is more of a comedy, I thought it fit well because that scene is kind of really interesting. But I liked the way that they did the nudity in that, because I feel like it tied in well with her, and it like made sense for what they were going for.
That's one thing I typically watch out for, and I'm gonna use this as a segue into my nomination.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, Roberto, cutting off your idea.
That's fine.
So the thing that strikes me about that character, and I do agree she's very strong-willed, for sure, and she does very strongly believe in something. and arguably, I would say she's probably the best character in the film as far as like a morality rating.
Right, yeah.
But I keep going back to like one of the big parts of the trailer is her, I think, unfolding that jacket, the duster she's wearing, revealing just that kind of thing. And so my thought is that, you know, is she as empowering?
Yeah.
And is the nudity done in an empowering way when it's right there flashing in the trailer? Because we all know sex sells.
Yeah, right.
You know? So that's my immediate question, but I do think she was a great and totally caught me off guard nomination.
Yeah.
Transitioning with the threat of nudity, my favorite, and I've talked about this so many times on the podcast, Roberto, I bet you can't guess who I'm going to say.
Okay.
Ripley from Alien.
I knew it. I was thinking, I was like, oh shoot, we have to pick women. Oh, I mean, I haven't seen Alien, but Truman's gonna take it. Never mind. I'll leave that to Truman.
Dude,
that was my inner monologue.
I wanna marry Sigourney Weaver in Alien for sure. But anyway,
would you marry current day Sigourney Weaver or Sigourney Weaver in Freaky Friday?
That's not Sigourney Weaver. That's Jamie Lee Curtis, bro.
Fuck.
And I don't know. There's a bit of an age difference that's a bit too much. You know,
Fuck.
I'm fine with older women, and I think she's older than me in Alien, but that might be too much of an age gap. But anyway, it's probably completely going against our point to talk about this on our Badass Women of Cinema podcast episode. But anyway, why I like Sigourney Weaver in Alien is that whole movie, right? First off, she's a woman in a very high position of power on this crew, on this the starship Nostromo, right? She's also arguably the most badass of the entire crew. I don't think even I think his name is Ash. No, that's the robot, I think. I forget. Dallas, maybe? I think it's Dallas. Dallas is the actual captain, and she's like the co-captain or next in command, right? But anyway, his kill count and his like cool badass shooting scenes don't even come close to Ripley in Alien. So I think that's really cool that she's the most badass person on the whole film. And then she's also able to, at the very end, there is some nudity in it, right? And it's of like the top of her butt crack, right? But it's so, I mean, not to say, I don't know the right way to say this, but it's not done in a sexual way. It's not like... It's
very casual.
It's very casual nudity that's not meant to be sexualizing, and it's done in a very, like, non-sexual way. You know what I mean? So I just think that's also cool that she's able to be a very regular human being who sometimes their underwear rides a little low. You know what I mean? And it's not done in a sexy way. What's up, Roberto?
So this leads into my question that I was gonna pose, sort of as like a follow-up question to one of the things you said earlier. But do you think if it was a dude playing Ripley instead of her, that they would have had the same scene, where like for the dude, his butt crack was showing?
That's a great question, and I do think yes. I think yes. Well, I don't know, to be honest, because the other thing is that Alien is a metaphor for rape. The whole idea of the film, right, at least to the best of my knowledge, is, that a woman's greatest fear is to be trapped in a room with an unstoppable rapist, right?
Okay.
So in a way, it is, I guess, important. Oh my gosh, I just figured so much out about the film. In that last scene, right, where there is that nudity, it's kind of showing that she's at her most vulnerable, You feel much less vulnerable while you're fully clothed and, possibly have a sidearm on you in your spaceship. At this point in time, right, she is, just in a tank top and underwear, right? And anyway, huge spoiler. I'm just kidding. Everybody sees it coming.
80s.
Yeah,
70s.
it's not really that crazy of a spoiler, but yeah, turns out while she's, undressing and kind of like relaxing, she's finally able to like let loose the aliens freaking in the room, on this escape pod that she's on. So I think it's important that the nudity is there, I guess, because it's kind of that, like, what would be the climax of a movie about rape, other than being trapped in the room specifically, whereas, this whole other time she's had a whole spaceship to run around in.
Okay. So, this goes
have
into
y'all
my
seen...
question.
Sorry, yeah.
MJ, what do you think makes an empowering female character? Or, like, this is a very big and I guess hard question. But, like, what makes the difference between, like, a character that is just sort of there just to, I don't know, do like that just falls into, like, traditional roles versus something that, I don't know, is not that?
For me, it's... What were you going to say?
And, like, we've been touching on, like, the nudity thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, do the main question first, but then, like, it's like
Yeah.
A and B, and then B is like, how would you make nudity empowering, or how can you, or how do you think that it can be?
Yeah. Well, for the first one, I think what mainly comes to my mind when I think of just like a super empowering female character is that she's unapologetic, because in a lot of movies, or if she's not being like saved by someone and she can, lead or do the work or just kind of be there for herself.
It's a great point.
And not really being saved by someone or like by a man. And I think that, that is the main thing that comes to my mind. And just kind of like, I'm trying to think of what else, because honestly, unapologetic is like the biggest thing. And because, there's a lot of, also not like typical, because I like to see whenever movies kind of switch it up with their casting, and it's not just like the same like skinny pretty white girl like over and over again, and it's like different women filling that role and also being unapologetic and like being their own leader. And I think for me that always turns out to be some of my favorite roles. But for the nudity thing, it's a really thin line, because sometimes it's like, like women should be empowered in their sexuality, and also it shouldn't be weird in certain scenarios, but sometimes it's like they just use that to profit off of it, and they just use it to sell it, or kind of like objectify a woman. So it's like, it's really hard, and I just feel like it has to be done right to the point where it's like consensual in the movie, and it's like it makes sense with what's going on. It's not just like, oh, girl's taking her top off and there are her hot boobs, and like that's like all she is. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but because it's just like I don't really know where to stand on it, because it can be done in so many different ways, and I feel like there are a lot of wrong ways to do it, but there's also a lot of right ways to do it.
Okay.
If that makes
So,
sense.
My question now, and this is one thing that I really heavily focus on when I look for badass women of cinema, is it's always a huge eye roll to me when the female character like shoots somebody in the head and then says something along the lines of, oh, did you see how a woman did that or something like that?
Yeah.
Like they have to bring attention to the fact
Yeah,
that
yeah. Like they
oh,
have
look,
to. It's like a
we
big
can cast
division.
a woman.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I feel like that almost makes it worse.
I think it makes it worse in a lot of scenarios because it's not normalizing it, and it's not just being like, yeah, we can cast a woman in any kind of role. It's like, look, we did this big thing, we casted a woman, but it's like,
Yeah, it's
well,
like, guys,
you know,
look, we cast a woman. Yeah,
It's creating,
we did
like, a
it.
divide.
We did it. And it's like,
yeah, exactly.
I feel like that's not what it's supposed. It's more of just like, it's just men and women. Like it doesn't have to be, and we cast a
Yeah.
woman. It's that just like
yeah.
seems wrong.
It almost feels like it plays into like the stereotype of just like, it's kind of like they think they're trying to be like, oh look, we have an empowering woman, but it's like if you don't just let her, like if you can't see men and women doing the same thing in like the same role without having to be like, but look, a girl's doing it, see, we're woke. It's like, but that doesn't like do anything besides, it just makes it like look like it takes an extra step to have women in that role almost. And it doesn't equalize everyone.
I see. Roberto, do you want to go to another nomination?
Yeah, and this one also comes with a question for MJ because I want to see how she feels about this. So I feel like a big thing whenever the sequels came out is a lot of people felt like the Star Wars sequels, because of course I'm going to pick a Star Wars movie, is a lot of people felt that Rey as a character was forced, or like just sort of like that whole thing of like her being the main character.
No, I've heard that. Yeah.
And I honestly don't care. Like it's like, oh great, it's a woman. Cool. Like it doesn't necessarily bother me whether it's a woman or a man. And yes, if it's a woman, it's like better like for representation. But like I don't feel not represented if it's a woman. Like it's like, I don't know. Forget this is a train that I don't need to go down. And so recently my dad falls asleep to movies. Like he like falls asleep watching movies, and so whenever I'll go out like at 1 a.m. and I'll like drink water and like have like a little snack before I go to sleep. And so recently he was watching through the Star Wars sequels, and I was watching like the beginning part of The Force Awakens, and then so whenever he finished it, he started talking to me about it, and I started thinking more about it, and it's like there's certain I don't know how I feel about, because like I feel at the same okay, I'm really bad at phrasing my words, but okay, so I feel like in some parts she's just like her own character and she sticks out for herself, right? That's her entire character, right? But then there's also times where like Finn grabs her hand and then she's like, no, don't grab my hand. And I don't know whether that fits into the like, we're doing a female role type, or does that fit into like her being, or is that just like characterization? And then that happens like throughout the film, and I don't know. I've heard a lot of debates for Rey either side, but all of them are just like whiny Star Wars nerds on the internet who are obviously men. So I wanted to see what you think.
I have watched like all of those movies with Rey, but I don't like rewatch them, so they're not, fresh in my mind, but
they're also forgettable.
Yes, very true. But I've heard that debate too a lot, and like my friend always brings that up, and he's like, oh, I don't know, it just feels like they forced it. And I wouldn't say I'm like big enough into the lore of Star Wars or just like anything about Star Wars to really have a stance on like how forced it feels, because for me as an outsider who just kind of watches Star Wars like for fun, it feels like it wasn't forced, but I also know why people say that. So I'm very in between with it, but I honestly liked her character a lot, and with me, I think diving deeper into it, I could see that, but like watching the movies, just again, like on a surface level, it never felt like they were like, oh look, we have a woman character, because I think if I had noticed that, I would have been like, oh wow, geez, Star Wars, like, come on. But again, it's not like fresh in my mind, and there could be parts that I'm like, oh wait, never mind. But from what I remember, it just always kind of felt like she was a very normal character.
Yeah.
And they never really like, capitalized the fact that she was a woman, and they were like, oh my gosh, look, we have a girl, guys, we have a token girl.
Yeah, because there's multiple times in the movie in which she like saves Finn, or she saves Poe, or like she saves other people, right? And so
Right, yeah.
I feel like that also goes in, like you were talking about how like you find like a woman character, an empowering woman character important that like doesn't need saving, and so she saves other people, right? And that I feel like part of the movie is that she's like, oh, I can handle myself, I don't need your help.
Yeah, true.
Well, I will say at the same time, I mean, how many times in action movies does it happen that kind of like Deus Ex Machina right at the end or whatever, where their friend comes out of nowhere and kicks the guy's ass one time that just like helps him out, you know, like the guy's standing right over them with a gun, and then all of a sudden someone comes out of nowhere with like a fire.
It happens in The Matrix.
I'm sure it does. Like,
Yeah, because
I can't.
Neo's dodging bullets, and then Trinity is like, dodge this, and then she shoots the dude with a deagle.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, I just think, man, Trinity might be an interesting one to talk about. But I did have one more thing to say on Rey. So, my whole thing about, specifically when Disney does it, right? So, and this goes into, like, all representation, right? You know, there's kind of, like, I don't know, that intersectionality piece of it is that, you know, all of these, I don't think minority groups is the right word to use because, you know, I believe there's 51% of the planet women. But these oppressed groups, I guess is the best word. You know, they all need that kind of representation. And so if we're thinking about when Disney put out Princess and the Frog, right? I rolled my eyes so hard to see them just actively, obviously parading that they just put, you know, a black woman as a princess, right? Which, that's kind of what I think all of these Disney movies are doing right now, or at least a lot of them. You know, Frozen is still that, you know, classic kind of
before this, I think. And she also just falls into like the classic Disney princess.
Yeah, and so anyway, Disney as a whole, right? They're responsible for pretty much all of the big major blockbuster franchises right now. And so it is important, I think, that they do put representation in all of their movies, even though every time I see, oh, look, a black stormtrooper, oh, look, they picked a woman as the, you know, lead in Star Wars, I'm going to be like, oh, I know why they're doing this, you know? They're not doing this because it's right. They're doing it because they think that's the way they're going to make money, right? And so it's annoying that I don't feel like the morals aren't there, because when you're talking about a company whose, you know, some of their earliest movies were The Song of the South, which is about a slave who decides to stay on the plantation because he loves the family so much and he wants to read the kid bedtime stories.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's what Splash Mountain is based off of.
Oh.
And that's why they're redoing Splash Mountain to now be based on Princess and the Frog, which I do think is a great step for sure. And, you know, to the best of my knowledge, Walt Disney himself was a huge anti-Semite.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You know, which at the same time, it does seem weird that he was responsible for a good amount of anti-Nazi propaganda. So there is that kind of one hole in that theory, but that's what I've heard. And so anyway, when you have this company where you know what they're founded in, right? And of course the personnel has changed, right, over the years. Walt Disney is dead.
Well,
I still have what?
It was a stupid joke. Continue.
I still just feel like they're not doing this because they want a female character to be the lead in Star Wars. They don't want a black person to be their, third in command or, whatever you would call Poe as the part of that gang. They're doing it because they have to. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, I think even though the morals aren't in the right place, it's so important that, there are kids now, there's a black kid growing up and knowing that he could be a member of the Star Wars group, which they kind of already had with Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, but it's one character.
And then there's a woman growing up watching Rey, and knowing that she could be, the badass female lead in Star Wars, the biggest franchise, or one of the biggest franchise.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, even though I don't think they're doing it for the right reasons, I guess.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Do y'all want to move on to another nomination? I believe it's your turn, MJ.
Yeah, I have a nomination, but she's not a character, she's a filmmaker, but I just wanted to talk about her because, Gallagher introduced me to her, and I love her. It's Barbara Koppel, and she made her, most famous movie is Harlan County, USA, which I watched, probably half a year ago, and it was pretty much, it's all about the, coal miners who were striking in the 70s. Yeah, and they, formed a union, and it's just super cool, because it's, this young woman who I think she was from, the Midwest, and just, got a camera and wanted to record all of it, and, now obviously she's, famous and well-known, but at the time, it was just, she had a passion for making movies, and just went out and did it, and I think that's so cool, especially for the time that she was in, because, it wasn't, a lot of women were making movies, and that movie also blew up, so she is not a character, but she's just somebody that I wanted to talk about, and because I just highly respect her, and I think she's super awesome, and I also liked that it's just a passionate movie, it wasn't she was oh, I want to make a movie and be famous. It was she just genuinely wanted to document everything that was going on around her that she saw.
Here's a question, and I know it's very loosely to your nomination, right? Mm-hmm. Because this, of course, is a documentarian and not a writer-director, but mm-hmm. How important do you think it is that there's kind of that diversity in the writer's room? And then I'm going to take it a step further, right? And I've always, kind of struggled with this in my own writings, right? Is that how can I write a black character when I've mm-hmm. never been a black person, right?
Yeah.
And even then, is it almost blackface, right? For me to be writing the lines of a black character.
Yeah. Or because this is an episode about women.
Right.
And replace black people with women.
Right, yeah.
We probably shouldn't talk too much about black people without some representation in this podcast, for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that it is really important, especially in the writer's room, because, and especially if you're writing a movie about women, a woman being just an example, because there are a lot of groups you could put into that category, but if you're writing a movie about women and it's all men writing it, it's well, it's almost just kind of they're making up, they're making up a fake woman and a fake story for a woman, but it's there are real stories of real women that should be told, and even if they aren't real, then a woman should come in and I think talk about making a woman, and I think that diversity is really important, and I'm happy that it's starting to change a little bit, but it's still, it's not really getting there super great or fast, but yeah, I really think that you know, having a woman like I said, for example, being able to speak for a woman and like tell their stories is very important over a man doing it, just because it's like, you know, they in most situations know what it's like, and know the general, like, you know, like the general, I don't want to say like hardships, but like just life of being a woman, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think no one can deny that the life of a woman is different than the life of a man. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Much harder.
Yeah.
So, all right. I guess it's my turn. I had a list of ones I wanted to nominate / bring up. Let me pull up that list right now. Forgot who my next pick was. Okay. Ooh, I want to talk about Elaine from Seinfeld. I want to know what y'all think of Elaine
I've never
from
seen Seinfeld.
Me neither.
Oh, man.
I think I've seen like
Okay.
one episode, maybe.
I can move to something else, but I'm just interested in that because in some ways she is a pretty typical woman, but she does have, you know, a lot of speaking time on the show.
Yeah.
And she obviously, you know, it's very much, you know, all of her struggles are exactly like Jerry Seinfeld and, you know, George Costanza's struggles in the show, you know, so,
Yeah.
but she is still, you know, the show's just about people, you know, dating most of the time, so
Mhm.
a lot of it is just her and her relationship endeavors. Do we want to, Roberto, am I stealing your nomination if I bring up Princess Leia, or do you want to, what do you
No,
want?
you're not.
You weren't going to bring up Princess Leia?
I was not. I called right, so I felt like that was the only the Star Wars only this. You know what I'm gonna say. Continue.
Yeah.
I can't do words right now.
I
But
just,
I will have something to say about this.
I have bones to pick with Princess Leia being the one of the championed badass women of film.
Yes.
In that, for starters, if we're going with the nudity that we brought up, she's obviously, you know, ridiculously, you know,
Yeah.
sex sells exposed in
Yep.
Return of the Jedi with the Jabba the Hutt scene, you know, and of
Right.
course, you know, it was literally just giving the, you know, nerdy fanboys exactly what they've been asking for this whole time.
Yeah.
The other thing I heard, and I can't, you know, we all know how much you should trust what you read on the internet. I was told that George Lucas told Carrie Fisher that she shouldn't wear underwear for the shooting of the film.
I heard that too. Yeah, I remember reading that somewhere.
Because there isn't underwear in space. And he convinced her, and it was correct. Is that not true, Roberto?
No, I was just doing that because it's skeevy and gross.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really gross.
And then I think in the first movie she's the best out of all of them, but even then she still kisses Luke, her savior, you know, who came in and saved this obvious damsel in distress as far as plot-wise goes.
Okay.
Although
yes,
she's very...
But whenever they're like, well, shit, we can't get out, she's like, well, you guys are stupid, and then she like helps them escape by shooting out the thing and puts them in the garbage chute. So,
Well, a lot of good that did, Roberto.
I mean,
She
they did
puts them in the
escape.
garbage.
They did escape. I mean,
I'm just joking. And
Yeah.
then I think it was also pretty obvious and forced when she starts doing her, you know, relationship with Han Solo.
yeah.
You know, I think that one also is kind of obnoxious that they're taking away what they started but didn't, you know, do to the fullest in the first film. What do y'all think on this?
I agree with the I especially agree with the whole Jabba the Hutt, like the swimsuit kind of thing. I don't even know what to call it, but but no, I agree with that. And it was like, wow, damn, you wouldn't see any guy characters in that. It felt so weird and so like it was pandering towards like the like you said, the like nerdy boys who wanted to see boobs and like they were like, oh, and it was like a fantasy. But yeah, I just, that has always bugged me because it was just kind of like, oh, you guys are obviously using a woman's body to, like it's like sex sells, and they're just like selling her body.
Roberto, did you have any comments on this?
I mean, I feel like it's a thing that's really hard to define for this, because and I completely agree with the whole bikini thing, and I feel like it's weird because I feel like there's times in the three of these movies where it could go either way, right? Because in the later parts of Return of the Jedi, there's times where like she saves Han, or like she saves all of her friends because she like made friends with the Ewoks, right? Or like other things like that, or like, but then all of Empire Strikes Back, she's just sort of playing like second fiddle to Han and Luke, right? She doesn't really do anything there. But then in the first one, she's like the leader of a rebellion, and she's like doing things and like stealing stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't really help that Star Wars is like a ginormous franchise, and people everywhere are just like either like don't like Leia and think that she's not, or like there's like people who grew up being like, yeah, empowering women, like Princess Leia is like my hero or whatnot. So it's a hard one. I would go, it's hard. I don't know. I feel like it's 60-40 of like I don't know. I don't want to.
I will say, at the end of the day, each person's going to have whatever they get empowered by themselves, you know what I mean? And I think it's more important that there are those opportunities, and who knows, maybe there's, a little girl watching, I know exactly which movie is a great example, Rihanna in Battleship, a film that I'm sure very few of y'all saw, if either of y'all saw it at all. But I remember it being advertised all over Disney Channel as the next, Michael Bay Transformers type thing, right? First off, bad movie, but Rihanna's character is obviously pandering and trying to, look, I'm a woman, I'm doing cool shit, but at the same time, if that's what does it for, a 9-year-old girl watching that movie and is like, man, I could be a badass, then, it works, I think. That's my opinion, but I do think there are better and worse ways of going about it in the general scheme of things.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, I believe it's your turn, Roberto.
So I'm gonna go with a movie that, like, whenever I heard like the trailers for, I was just like, oh, okay, right? And then I was like, and then my mom and my sister were like, yeah, we're gonna go see this movie. Do you want to come along? I'm like, sure. And like, this is like months later. I was like, sure, I'll go see it. And then so in December, I went to go see Little Women with my mom and my sister.
Oh, I knew that's what you were going to say.
That is like my favorite movie of 2019.
Same.
That movie is the best. I cannot think of a way that it could be better. It's great.
I agree. Yeah.
So MJ,
so I haven't seen Little Women.
What, Truman?
Oh, I was just about to jump in, but MJ, if you want to talk first.
I love Little Woman so much, and like I agree. I think it was like I don't remember a lot of what came out in 2019 because my conception of time is really bad, but I think it was my favorite movie of 2019, and that Joe was on my list from Little Woman because it's I mean, she, like, the speech, I literally rewatched it the other day with my mom and my sister, and, like, the speech she gives about being a woman is, like, I just, that hits so hard, it makes me cry every time. I saw it with a bunch of friends of mine that were girls, and we all cried so hard because it's, like, it still applies even to this day and, like, you know, certain situations. And I just really, really like the way that they didn't only make Joe, but, like, also the mom, I'm forgetting whatever her name was, but the way
She's
that
in Star
they
Wars.
wrote her. Yeah, oh yeah, true. But, like,
And
you know, the way
Jurassic
that they did. Really? She is?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. But, yeah, you know, she's super famous. But the way that they, like, made the mom, too, I loved her. I loved how compassionate she was. I loved how. I just really loved how the movie portrayed women. Like, it makes me so happy to watch that movie, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future of movies about women.
So, y'all already talked about it a little bit, but I haven't seen Little Women yet. I'm not the biggest Greta Gerwig fan, but I also don't have too many things to, you know, say that from. I wasn't a big fan of Frances Ha. I did like Lady Bird. But when I saw the trailer for Little Women, it very much struck me as the look I'm a woman type thing. But the way you're talking about it makes it sound like that's not how it was
It's
portrayed or came across.
I don't think there's, like, really. I feel like the only time, and I could definitely be wrong, or maybe I just didn't notice things because I'm me, but, like, I feel like the only time in which it's like we're women and we're doing things is the time in which, like, she gets shit on by the editor of the newspaper for, like, not for, like, oh, well, this can't happen this way, and then she's like, well, why not, right? But all throughout the rest of the movie, I feel like it's just like there's people doing stuff, and it's just like
I
it's
agree.
and it is. I don't know. That movie just made me feel so happy. I don't know.
Yeah, same.
It's just like, it's such a happy movie. Like, for all the sad stuff that happens in it, it's such a happy movie. I like it too much.
I do have a question. And so I have officially added Little Women to my list now, based on y'all's stunning reviews. And Roberto, awesome. I'll borrow the DVD from you sometime.
Gotcha.
And anyway, I wanted to know what y'all's thoughts on the ending were, and if y'all know about the book's ending. Do y'all know about that situation?
Yes. I know it because I watched a video on it.
I only know about it a little bit because my mom kind of explained it to me, because she is a huge fan of, like, the books and then the movies, so my mom loves Little Women.
Well, anyway, the way it was described to me is that in the book, she still ends up getting married and, you know, falling into that trap of the book that she wanted not to have, you know, be an unmarried woman that ends up married at the end, you know. Which in a way I kind of like, because of its fuck you nature, right? In that, you know, the whole time they've built up this story to be, you know, look at what we're doing, right? And again, I might be completely wrong. Look at what we're doing. We're discussing, you know, the times and what women were forced to go through and how, you know, whether or not they were able to get out of those societal pressures. And again, that's, to the best of my knowledge, what this book is. And then at the end, she still has to conform to the societal pressures. And so I do kind of like that they're kind of robbing people of, well, that's actually not what this is. Just from a narrative standpoint. Well, from a representational standpoint, I, of course, would pick the opposite, that she is successful in not being the unmarried woman that falls into the trap of at the end being married.
Mm-hmm.
What are y'all's thoughts there?
I think it goes both ways, because it's like, I feel, following your thing, it could be like the entire movie they spend doing things about showing how like women can do the same thing as men, or like they can like take care of themselves and do whatever, right? And there's nothing holding them back, and then at the end it shows you what's holding them back, which is the system, right? Mm-hmm. So then that could work on its own, of being like, well, the system's like screwy and it's holding people back, right? So that works that way. And there's a very interesting thing. I feel like there's two stories in Little Women, right? And I think it goes in like the same way, or it's defined by like the colors of like the color grading of the movie. So like any time, because the entire movie she spent like writing a book, right? And so in the book, so if she's writing the book, or stuff that happens in real life, so like whenever her sister dies, or anything bad happens, or anything more realistic happens, it's all blue. It's all blue tones, right? So the end of the movie, in which she like gets her book printed, that's blue, right? And then any time where like the more picturesque story happens, right? Like at the end, wherever she marries the dude and sets up like a school, it's orange, right? All of her happy memories are orange, right? And so I watched this interesting video. They like basically was like, these are two separate stories. All the orange stuff and the person read the book and like did a full like 30-40 minute long thing on it. And like the orange scenes come from the book, right? Or like are what is from the book, and the blue scenes are what happens to Jo while she's writing the book, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like in that way the movie can sort of do both of these things, because it does do both of these things, and you get both of the endings, right? I don't know. I'm not explaining this as well as a 30-minute video can. The 30-minute video is great. Go check out Patrick H. Willems. That his channel's great. Watch that.
I agree though. I think like the ending, it almost contradicting itself, is kind of like, I guess I don't know if like symbolism is the right word, but it feels like it's symbolism for like at the end of the day, it's still like the system still, like you were saying, it still kind of takes over, and it still wins, and it's still like integrated in women's lives a lot. And I don't know, because I'm like both ways with it. Like there's a part of me that like wishes she could have just not gotten married and like ended up on her own and was just like super independent. But I also think that, you know, like I said, like it contradicting itself makes sense, and it kind of proves a point.
Yeah, well, because so the Little Women has been done over a lot of times, right? It's a very popular story, and it's been done a lot of times, and so the ending has actually switched back and forth depending on who's done it, and it switched back and forth between the two endings that we got in the movie, right? And so the one ending in which Jo prints her book is what Louisa May Alcott actually did. Right? That's what happened to her, because like the book is sort of about what happened to her in her life, right? Mm-hmm. And so like there's both, like there's the ending that happened to her in real life, in which she prints her books and she lives alone and doesn't get married, and then there's the thing that's in the book. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not explaining this well. Watch the video. It's way better than I can explain.
No, yeah, I get what you mean, though.
All right. I think we probably have time for one more go round.
Maybe two.
If we're able to make them quicker.
We can make it. We can make it last.
All right, you do you, Roberto. It is your podcast, technically. MJ, what's your final pick?
My last one is, I think her name, I haven't watched this movie in like over a year and a half, but Hallie from the Florida Project.
Shoot, I haven't seen this one.
Oh, it's Roberto. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay, well, I'll be quick with it then, because it's an amazing movie, and I think you guys have to watch it. Like, it's such a good movie, and it's
I
really
was
great.
told I
I
just
think I might
wouldn't
have
enjoy it because it's not my type of movie.
Well, if it's not your type of movie, then I feel like that gives more of the reason to watch it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, for sure. Willem Dafoe's in it, I just found out.
Yeah, no, Willem Dafoe is really good in it.
Yeah, so now I'm definitely going to watch it because I love that man. He's like my favorite actor.
Yeah. But the movie it's a really, like, blunt and honest movie, and it doesn't have, like, a happy ending, and it's very just, like, realistic, and it's almost, like, sad how realistic it is, because it's, like, nobody gets the perfect life, and it shows the really fucked up ways of, like, especially, it shows a lot of, like, how terrible poverty affects people, and especially, like, young moms with kids. And so Hallie is this young mom with a kid who's just, like, trying to literally stay alive and, like, keep her kid and her alive and happy. But I really like her because I think she's a really good, unapologetic woman, and, like, they do a lot with her kind of being, like, over-sexualized and stuff, but I kind of almost really enjoy that because it shows, like, how, I don't really know how to put it into words, but it almost kind of, like, talks about, and it brings attention to the over-sexualization of women, and I just love her character because she's so real, and she is very, there's this scene, like, this scene just, like, sticks with me, and it's, like, she gets super mad at, I think, Willem Dafoe, and, like, she's so mad, and she's, like, storming out of his office, and then she just, like, rips her pad off her underwear and slams it on the window and, like, flips him off. And I think it's such a funny scene, but it's also just, like, she's so, like, crazy and all over the place, but it's, like, in a way that it's just, like, it's so satisfying almost. I just really love her character. I think she is super cool and super badass and works super hard, and she's not perfect too, which is what I really appreciate about her. But yeah, I just love that movie, and I love her character so much.
All right. Great. I'll check it out and I'll get back to you, I guess.
I'll do the same.
And then, so my final pick, have y'all seen Under the Skin?
No.
I haven't.
Darn it. I don't even know if I want to talk about it if y'all haven't seen it. It's interesting, but I definitely, it's a great conversation piece. Mm-hmm. So I've also thought about doing that for the podcast. I don't know if I've pitched that for you yet, Roberto. Maybe we can do that.
I've heard the name.
Maybe we can do Under the Skin after
The next round, yeah.
After this one take stuff. Maybe MJ, you can come back on if you'd like.
That'd be fun.
Then I will pick Marriage Story because I assume y'all have both seen that.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, come on,
Roberto.
I don't get why you have to live.
I know of it.
I don't get why you have to live under a rock the whole time. What's funny is both of these characters are played by Scarlett Johansson. But I did want to know what y'all, or really MJ, since you're the only one who's seen it.
Sorry.
I don't know who I'm pointing fingers at right now.
I don't know either.
Anyway, what did you think of Scarlett Johansson's character in Marriage Story?
I really liked her character, and I think I definitely wouldn't put her on, like, my personal list of, like, badass women, because there wasn't anything about her that really stood out to me about, you know, her being, like, super, just, like, what fits for me being a badass woman. But I did like her character a lot, and I think, I don't know, that movie was so sad and all over the place and interesting, and I'm trying to like remember it because I watched it like at the beginning of quarantine. But I think that her character and like her with the whole like independence thing was really interesting to see, because it was like, from what I remember, she at times is like really okay with being independent, and at other times is like just super not okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to go with that, because it's just kind of like, yeah, she was just kind of there for me, but I liked it. I liked her character.
Well, I just thought it was a good one to discuss.
Yeah.
You know, because as much as, you know, I feel like we've covered the ground pretty well with some really fantastic ones, and I wanted to bring up one that I thought might be fantastic and might not be, depending on y'all's thoughts. Anyway, she, in my opinion, it's really interesting because it almost does talk about representation, and also it probably does talk about Noah Baumbach and Scarlett Johansson's relationship in some ways. And Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig's relationship in some ways. I mean...
Oh, did they have a thing?
No, I believe they're married.
Huh.
And yeah, Greta Gerwig got her beginnings as an actress. And to the best of my knowledge, she's been in a couple Baumbach movies. But anyway, so it almost, I think, could be this metaphor of, you know, the writer-director putting words in the woman's mouth, right? And she feels trapped that whole time, you know. Although I don't think that is what this movie is trying to do. You know, all art is in the, you know, eye and the interpretation of the beholder, and that's what makes, you know, any good art good, in my opinion. Is when you can, you know, interpret it from multiple angles. And so I think Scarlett Johansson is a good character as far as women's empowerment, because I think first of all, she's a three-dimensional character, and that's important. You know,
True.
There are very, very regularly, you know, two-dimensional characters. Like, even though what's her name in Sorry to Bother You is, you know, an unapologetic character, I don't know that she's three-dimensional. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. That was my big problem I had with her.
And, I mean, maybe even same with Ripley and Alien. I'd have to rewatch it for really good three-dimensionality. But still, I think it's important that she is a three-dimensional character, and it does kind of show that kind of, like, the balance between, you know, sometimes you've got to be, you know, empowered and hands-on and, you know, like, whatever it is, you know, taking matters into your own hands, but maybe sometimes you do need help and all that jazz.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, and I think you're reminding me more and more of, like, how her character is, because I just, like, genuinely forgot. But, yeah, true, I would agree with that a lot.
Yeah, and so I think she's a good person, right? The whole movie, I think, just shows how, you know, two people can really be victims of circumstances when, you know, at first the divorce seemed like an amicable break, and it obviously does not turn out to be something like that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think she's a great character. I don't know that she's that empowering, but at the same time, I think it's important to always have that duality of, you know, having the Rey, right, you know, who's super badass, but I don't know that Rey ever has a scene where she does just sit down and admit that she needs help, because, you know, maybe it's not empowering at some point
she admits that she doesn't know what she's doing.
Okay, well that's in
the third
there
one.
we go. I've only seen 4, so, you know, but anyway, you know, I think I think it's important for any person to, likely feel that as much as it's important to take matters into their own hands and, be a badass at points, sometimes you got to ask for a little help. You know what I mean? So I do think that's
true. Yeah, I do like that aspect of her a lot.
I think that's balanced pretty well in Scarlett Johansson's character. But I'm sure there are better ones. I just figured that would be one that's still on the tip of people's tongues right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Roberto, you want to close us off?
Yes. In this one, I originally okay. So, MJ, have you seen Kill Bill?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. What do you think? Because I feel like it fits the criteria of because I feel like both movies are her doing her own thing and standing up for herself and being strong and doing it herself, but at the same time she's doing it she was part of the system of women under a dude who controlled them all, and there's still weird, and she's still she learns from the one Asian dude who knows a lot of kung fu, and he's a master or whatever. She learns under him, and then she's also learning under whatever the dude's name that she's under. Yeah. But then also she's going against it. So and then
true.
There's also the whole thing of who I haven't seen these movies in forever, so I'm just gonna not name them by name. The main person at the end of the first movie who's Asian, and she's the crime boss of that whole thing.
Yeah.
She's the leader of a gang, and that's she just goes and offs people, right? And so she's a very strong character, but I don't know if
I think I would argue for certain that the better female empowering character is the crime boss.
I agree.
Because even then there's that scene where they that one person says, should we really have this person be leading? And to the best of my knowledge, that's about race and not about...
Yeah, because she's half American.
Got it, yeah. So it's about her race rather than that she's a woman, right? So this whole scene, no one's questioning that she's a woman. They're just questioning whether or not a half American should be, the crime boss, as it were.
Yeah.
And so I do think she's better. But I definitely think Kill Bill. I'm forgetting Uma Thurman's character's name. But
you could just call her Uma Thurman.
Yeah, I do think Uma Thurman's character is a pretty good example. Just, I do think there are some problems. Okay. I don't know how I feel about the "my name's Buck, I like to fuck" scene, right?
I mean, she does kill him.
Yeah, for sure, but it's obvious that they're specifically drawing attention to her sexualization and all of that.
Yeah.
And to the best of my knowledge, those suits are pretty tight that she wears.
Yes. So this is what I was thinking about, is because the base underlying story, I feel, and the characters are very I feel strong female characters, right? But then there's small things within the movie that aren't, or that sort of undermine it a bit. And then you have the whole thing of the whole relationship between Uma Thurman and Tarantino, which is aside to the movie.
What do you mean?
Didn't they have a whole fight of them arguing about whatever? I don't know anything about that. There was a beef between the two over these movies.
Yeah, I thought she said that she said something happened between them that she doesn't like him or something. But I could be just making that up and thinking that.
I think it's something like that too.
Another thing I might want to bring up, and I'm not sure whether this is a fair critique, but her whole motivation, right, is the fact that they killed her baby and, you know, her husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a way, is it almost bringing back that kind of feeling of, you know, the woman's most important job is to be a mother, right? And then they're robbing her of that, and that's why, you know, she goes around killing these people. But at the same time, you know, if someone were to kill all my family and friends, and I was a badass assassin, I can't imagine that I wouldn't go around killing all of them, you know?
Yeah.
So it is kind of that back and forth there.
The other thing is that, like, I don't think that her having a kid is still, no matter, I feel like will sort of always be, no matter what, a motherly thing, or, right? Like, and yeah, like, the whole thing of, like, that women should be there to, like, have kids and clean the kitchen, that's stupid. But, like, having a kid necessarily isn't. Like, that could be, you could do that in an, like, a empowering way, I guess.
No, for sure,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So
I just definitely am thinking about, you know,
Like what
whether
that
or
could
not
mean.
that was like a cool move as far as, you know, making her a good, empowering female character
Yeah.
of the film is, you know.
yeah, I just remember the whole thing that happens to her in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was bringing up earlier, dude.
Well, I just remember the character. I didn't remember what he did.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
All right. And on that very peaceful, wonderful note, I think we've come to a fantastic close. Does anybody have any closing statements they'd like to make?
Keep making good and empowering woman characters.
Oh, I'm sure
Please.
Hollywood's going to hear that echo through the hills
They're
from
definitely going to.
this little podcast. Oh, wait. Ah, I had such a great idea for the opening banter, but it's so worth it to still bring it up at the closing.
Okay, do it.
I've heard that MJ is an avid listener of the Film Student Study Guide. Is that correct, MJ?
I wouldn't say avid, but I'm a listener.
So MJ is one of the 17, Roberto.
How many episodes? Or how many minutes?
Oh my god, dude, like, well, I think two
Is it
full ones, but
two
like maybe
full
four,
ones?
2 to 4 in total, because
Dang! I was gonna be like, so have you listened more than 30 minutes?
No. I do like put it on. Like I listen to podcasts when I paint, so it's not like I'm like really like dissecting every single word.
You know, I don't think any
Whoa.
podcaster can
Yeah.
expect full attention.
Yeah, true.
I did not think that people fully listened to our episodes at all.
This is our first time to be able to have a critic on the podcast, so
Yeah, how do we do better?
Yeah. What's your Film Student Study Guide-esque analysis of the Film Student Study Guide?
I mean, the reason I listen is because I really like them, and I really like what you guys do. I just remember the episode you had with, isn't his name Ian? Like,
Yeah.
that's who was right. Yeah. That
Our
episode was
notorious
very-
worst episode.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Because I was like, I don't know what you guys think, but personally, it was not my favorite, and it was a little hard to listen to at times.
I mean, you
But-
met Ian, right?
I've met him, like, in passing a couple times.
Okay. He's just very quiet.
Uh-huh.
It was a bad call for us to put Ian on the podcast, to be honest.
Yeah, but we also
But
did it because Ian is our friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got
It was-
got nepotism on this show, hardcore.
Yes. Hardcore.
It was still interesting,
Friend
though, like,
nepotism.
yeah.
Did you have other critiques?
None that come to my mind. No, I mean,
What's the worst thing about the podcast?
oh, I think the worst thing would. I don't know. No, I'm trying to think. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you guys do this a lot or if this was just one episode, but like the fights, the little banters between you guys that are, you know, it's mainly because Roberto's really stubborn.
I think we're both very stubborn.
Well, I think you're
I'm-
really stubborn.
I'm
Oh.
pretty stubborn,
Roberto.
but Roberto, it's a defining
I
character
think
trait for
Roberto
you.
is like another level of like stubborn. It just like brings me back to being in person, being at school, and like being around you guys. Like, yeah.
I don't know. I think we have a classic Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger thing going on. Like twins.
Yeah. Who's who?
I'm
Who's Danny and
Schwarzenegger for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Really, either way, you come out on top.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no wrong person to pick.
There's no bad answer.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
I
well.
remember,
Oh, sorry, Roberto. You
I
go.
remember Ben. Couple of the first episodes, Ben Fremen was telling. I texted him about it. It's like, I hate these. I hate these podcasts. I'm like, why? And his answer was, it reminds me of whenever I'm trying to do something on my computer, and you just kept poking me and trying to get my attention.
Oh my god.
And he's like, it's an hour and a half of that, and I hate it.
See, Ben brought up to me that most of the podcast, which I think it's evolved from there, is me correcting you or covering my ass in order to not sound like I said what I just said or whatever it is. That's what Ben brought up to me, or me covering up your tracks mostly, Roberto.
I don't
So
even
you're
know
very-
that I'm leaving them.
You
tracks?
just make a lot of bold statements sometimes.
I
That
have
I
a
think-
large wake.
I think it's important to make them a little bit smoother rather than chunky peanut butter, man.
Dude, I love chunky peanut butter. Chunky peanut butter is so good.
I think if
Alright.
you guys really want critique, you should go to Gallagher. That's all I'm gonna
Ooh.
say.
Wait, do you think Gallagher's seen one of our episodes?
No, I think he has because I'm like 98% sure he brought it up to Chaos like on one of the last weeks before Corona of school.
What?
I think. Oh, it might have just been talking shit about you guys, but like I don't know. I can't remember.
Oh no.
I'm now mad that you didn't remember.
I know. Well, that's
I would-
why I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I would have remembered if he did. If he was like, yeah, I've been listening to their podcast. It was probably him being like, oh, I texted Roberto last night. You know, oh Roberto, and like something like that. But I feel like he would listen. I mean, if you told him to, he would definitely listen and critique.
I feel
it.
like he was like, why do you guys want me to listen to your podcast? You know that I don't have time. I feel like it'd be
Have
one
him
of those
listen to this episode. Yeah, true. No. He would listen to it. He's a nice guy. Come on.
He would listen
If-
to it if we asked him to.
If I
Yes,
tell him
but
to listen
also
to it,
if it was like a work in progress more
yes.
than
yeah.
if it's a finished product. But yeah,
Yeah.
does he talk shit about us while we're
Or
not
did he?
there?
Yeah, definitely.
Who the most? Who the most?
Roberto.
Yes. Ah!
Yeah.
What do you do?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, no. Actually, it might be Truman because I think he talked more about how you vaped all the time, and he would always be like, nobody better be vaping in the back room. Nobody better vape in all of Chaos because of Truman. He ruined it for you guys. He never lets us forget it too. He always
God.
says it.
I remember so many times in that class, like we'd be sitting at the back table and you and Ian would both be there and you'd be staring at Gallagher and then Gallagher like looks away and you just like pass it between your two and you're just like
Oh my god.
right? Or like he'll like get up to go to like to the bathroom and you guys will be like, yes, and then you just go like just start like just sucking away at that. It was so
Suck
bad.
it away.
All right, we can close the podcast now.
Next week we're doing all the one-take things. It's 1917, Russian Ark, Birdman, and what was the other one?
Rope.
Rope. Yeah, we're doing those. Oh, also, since my dad has been watching the Star Wars sequels, he thinks they're good now. He thinks that they're
Okay.
quality movies. So I'm gonna, if I have time, I'll go through and watch them, and I'll see what I think. And that'll be our
All right.
next beginning segment.
I'm not gonna watch any more new Star Wars films, Roberto.
I am not holding that against you. I would not either.
All right.
Okay.
Well, until next week.
Until next week. Thank you, MJ.
Yeah, thanks, guys.